need to go over there. Okay, I may be pandemic out of practice. The audio, you weren't able to hear the audio. I think they were. Perfect. Okay. Everybody, let's start over. Life's messy, but we can live happy. I'm so excited to have all of you on. And for the next 20, 30 minutes or so, I'm going to be signing book plates that look like this to put in your books when you get them. We're really excited about the pre-order. Gordon asked if there's going to be an audio version, and you can order it right now. I was in New York 2 weeks ago, and it was really amazing because I first went to Philadelphia and I had just a really magical, cathartic experience. And then I went to New York, and for 5 days, I worked with a publisher and St. Martin's Press and recorded the book, this time in my own voice. When we got this book contract, and it was my second one with St. Martin's and my fourth one with a traditional publisher, I asked for the ability to read my own stories, and they graciously granted that to me. I don't know if any of you remember, but my first book was read in a pretty deep male voice, and he referred to me as he, the pronoun he and his, throughout the whole book, just assuming that Cy, this poor guy they hired, he did a great job, but assuming Cy was male, and so he had to go back and record some of it, and I think they might have done it the second time in a female voice. But the first three books, I didn't have fan support like all of you. And when they looked at what this book was going to be, it went from a book that they asked me to write to tell other people how to live. And that just didn't feel right to me. People ask me a lot, like, you've been through a lot of things personally. Like, how do you stay positive without it being like toxic and without it being spiritually bypassing, which we're all able to do. And so instead of writing a book telling you how to live, I wrote a book on how I've lived and some of the key lessons. So it's not a book that you begin from beginning to end like a how-to book. It is, here's a big lesson I learned in my life, and here's kind of the setup. And it has a lot of practical ways that you can just notice more, get to know yourself more, move through the world more skillfully. So to Gordon's question, the Audible is recorded. It will be available on Audible. And I think you can pre-order that out there right now as well. So I'm very excited. It's in my own voice. And I'm just looking at the chats here. People can hear now. We've got everybody lined up. Oh, Vanessa, I love that the books have changed how you look at things. And I'm really moving into a next chapter of my life, not just corresponding with well-being that we're wanting in our lives throughout, but and I think it's the work of the ego. At some point at work, we said it's professional development belongs at work. Personal development and well-being, that's your own personal stuff, as if we can divide the human. And I'm really seeing so many people just come back and saying, you know what, I want to evolve as a human being, and I want to move through the world more skillfully, and I want to do it with a lot of love. Like, let's talk about that. How do we do that at work and at home? So I'm very excited about that. I hope, Patricia, you got it figured out, that Patricia said, never mind. So thank you, Vanessa, for already pre-ordering on Amazon. But when you saw this, you have 2 books coming, which is great because you purchased them for supervisors. So what I'm going to do is I'll sign book plates for you, Vanessa, as a big fan. Type in and tell Maria what names you want on those. I'll get signing here. I'll try and talk and sign at the same time. We so appreciate the support. And Vanessa knows a little secret some of you might want to know. If you pre-ordered today, we'll get you this book plate signed and sent out. And I'm assuming Maria's collecting addresses for that to happen. If you order one for you and one for a friend, or like Vanessa's gearing up all of her supervisors, then that gets you this really cool bonus. I taped with Alex asking me questions, this conversation series. And I didn't know what he was going to ask me, and I didn't know what I was going to say, but we got into some really cool topics that are featured in the book. And a lot of people are like, is this appropriate for work? Is it not? I would tell you that this is a book from my heart. I talk about how when we want to be chosen, we're willing to abandon ourselves in order not to be abandoned for another, whether that's not asking you, whether it's a job you want, you just get caught up in wanting to be picked for the job. I talk about gratitude. I talk about over giving and over functioning and boundaries. I talk about feeling all your feelings. I talk a lot about love and life and motherhood. There's a letter to my son in here when he was going through a really tough time. He asked me if I believed in a higher power, if I believed in anything outside of ourselves. And it was almost like a channeled letter. It's like for those of you that are parents or are really open-heartedly involved in a teenager's life. It was one of those questions where I didn't know what to say, so I just sat down and just started writing. It felt channeled, and it turned out like so beautiful. And to Gordon's question about recording the book, when I started to read the book out loud and I read that letter to my son, I realized that it really was a letter to myself. It was so cathartic and magical. The book is simple, but it's really vulnerable and from the heart. So Vanessa, we definitely will get those signed for you, and we will get you added to the list. To pre-order the audio version, Maria put a chart up there. Please ask me questions too. This doesn't have to be me rambling. And I'm going to start to sign some of these. The first one I'm going to sign, and so I'll be looking down and up. I'm not super skilled at this, with these very cool book plates. I'll just pick which one, like I think the message will fit on. And then what you do with these, they're stickers. And so you can just open it up and stick them right in your book. It was the best solution my team came up with. I wanted to fly around individually, meet all of you, but they said not yet. So the first book I'm going to sign is from Nikki Trowbridge, and very excited. I think Nikki I met through some salons and stuff I spoke at, but I'm not completely positive, but I'm going to sign to Nikki, Nikki. And what I'm signing on my books, unless you requested a message, is my new favorite saying. You'll see it on lots of shirts I wear. We're hoping to have merchandise, but love wins. That is, you got to love people up, and then you got to call them up. And so when I was asked about values in my company, what's your mission statement? What's your vision statement? What are your values? Values to me are like aspirational, and I like behaviors. I like essential behaviors or mantras. I really like mantras. Thanks, Tammy, for just ordering it. I love mantras, and mantras are important to me. And if you ask me when you join my company, when in doubt, like, what's my North Star? I would tell you two things. I'm like, when in doubt, just go back to love wins. See the person in front of you, open up your heart, open up your mind. You can never go wrong giving them benefit of the doubt, responding in a loving way, moving beyond ego, and just, seeing somebody, even if they're being judgmental, they're just believing their own thinking. And if you believed your own thinking, you'd be acting that way too. So essential behavior number one, when in doubt, love wins. And the second thing is evolve yourself. And those are my two mantras. I want people continually working their program. I want people to be on the daily saying, here's what I did that helped, and here's what I did that might have hindered. And I've learned something about myself, and with no shame, only integration. I'm totally into IFS right now, internal family systems, where any part of you is either trying to protect you or firefight for you, or uh, serve some purpose. And that is a lot about self-leadership, not about trying to throw those parts of you out, but to welcome them in and thank them for their service. And I ask them to like step down. Like when I was reading the book, a lot of times I would get tears that came. Reading it out loud was such an amazing experience. It just made it like so real. And if you've ever written something and then put it down, like even a college term paper, and picked it up like 6 months later, hopefully you had this experience. You're like, dang, that was good. This is a good book. But as I was reading it, part of me would cry, and I would just, instead of in the past, I would just muscle through and be like, stop it. I was able to just say, that part of you that has tears around this, thank you for that open heart. And if you'll just step back a little bit, I need to read the book, but I promise that I'll welcome those tears as they come. And it sounds like size loony, but I'm telling you, this is great, great stuff. So that's what I'm writing is Love Wins. So Nikki, this is Love Wins, sigh. So next up is Kayla is up, and I am going to, she didn't request something, so I'm going to do the same. And I'm going to look up every once in a while to make sure that who's on. Crystal's on. Oh my gosh. Hi, Miss Crystal. If you haven't seen it yet, I just messaged you on Facebook. Crystal and Dawn, I went to, at the time, I forget the old name of the hospital, it doesn't matter. It's Monumental Health right now in Rapid City, South Dakota. And that area, first of all, is magical. If you haven't been to the Rapid City, the Black Hills area, the indigenous people that have just, I think, implanted so much of their wisdom there. But there also is some origin stories for some of the indigenous nations about all life starting in that area. It's fantastic. Monumental Health, amazing. And I loved working with their team and Paula, their CEO. And anyway, Crystal, I loved that you left the book. She was part of our, a small group that pre-read the book. And it was really, really exciting that you found it so helpful. So I'm glad to see you on here. I think what we're going to realize is that so many of us have experiences that we're not talking about, but are somewhat heavy on our heart. And my whole goal with the book is to share with you some of the tough things I've been through. Life is messy. And at the same time, not share what they did to me, but share how I evolved. Because our goal, the reason I love Evolve Yourself is our goal is to evolve or emerge, evolved, not traumatized. And for those of you that are writers out there, someone wrote that they just love helping people or hearing writers talk about the act of writing. And this book, I had to almost like shut down kind of the editor in my head and just write from my heart. Because if I had that editor still going, it's like, oh, soften that, change that, don't do that. And it would have just been another like book about spiritual bypassing. It's not a self-help book because we're not self-help projects. I believe that if we go inside and work our own evolution, allow ourselves to be changed by the world as much as we hope to change the world, the deeper we go in forging wisdom, the more able we are to walk through the messy world with love. A lot of us, when we try and seek out happiness, and I'm not talking about the fleeting feeling of happiness, I'm talking about the state of contentment. We do some funny things. We defer happiness, like I'll be happy when I get the promotion, or I'll be happy, when I'm no longer single, or maybe when I am single, or I'll be happy when. And what's really sad about that is it defers your happiness. You could just be happy now. But there are some habits and dedications to like reveal your natural state of happiness. And I believe that happiness, contentment is our natural state. We get to believing our own thinking, or there are some things in life that may be chronic sources of unhappiness where we haven't been brave enough to listen to our own soul and our own cravings. But for the most part, where life is experienced is in the mess where you meet the world. And you're never going to do it perfectly. You're never going to pass the test. You have to learn that you are enough, and you will screw this up, but only daily. And there are no screw ups. So I talk a lot about topics of transcending duality, good or bad, and just making room for many things to be true at the same time. I talk about how often we try and decide like questions like, should I stay, should I go, whether that's a job or a relationship in the book, and how that question is flawed and keeps us in misery. because should I stay is so external, like what's the right answer and what would people think? And it gets into people pleasing and it's so conditional, right? Like you have a good week at work, you're like, oh, I'm staying. And then you have a bad week at work, I'm leaving. Well, you've outsourced your emotional well-being, and we do that a lot. And so I talk about how to change your questions if you want better answers. Like a question I had to get to is, what is my soul craving? And am I willing for other people to be wrong about me to live the life I want? Am I fulfilled? And what would be fulfilling? And then getting clear about that, and then asking the people around me if that's something they can give me. And then not fantasizing or dressing up the answer, like hearing the answer, no, and accepting the answer. And that leads you into grieving and getting good at living in between. Like I had a life I loved pre-COVID, and I had, in my mind, a life I know I will love because I'm a big part in curating my life. And I'd also talk about the space between the in-betweens. That space between loving big and losing something is called heartbreak. And that's something we have to get good at. And a lot of books don't tell you, they tell you how to feel better. I'm like, no, let me tell you how to really feel not better so that you can maintain a state of happiness. So I think you guys are going to love the book. I think you folks are going to love it. Okay, let me read the comments. I'm kind of like multitasking here. Okay, not kind of. Hey, Donwood, you're on. I love those hands. Nicole, hi, I can't wait to read this book. I can't wait to listen to you speak at the, oh my gosh. So as part of the book launch, I went out to some of the people that were believed in me originally. So my dad used to say something like, dance with the people that brung you to the dance. And oh my gosh, Iowa Women Lead Change isn't just about Iowa. They're far bigger than that. But they were one of the first people to hire me as a speaker and move into the genre of talking, yes, about business, but also about life. So Nicole, I'm so excited to see you there. And I just remembered I can show these to I can show them to people. So if you're not watching, hey Quinn, the production of the book is something. What chapter did you find most challenging or difficult? What's your internal validation that you're ready to publish? No more edits or changes. So a couple of things. Don't trust yourself on when it's ready. You are not the expert. So literally people are like, is your book's launching on the launch day? My last book's like, aren't you going to be out celebrating? I'm like, I'm going to be in bed because it is the most vulnerable thing, even if it's work stuff. It is the most vulnerable thing to put a book out in the world. If you lead with this, like, I'm going to put this out and then my ego is going to see what people think of it and where they disagree. And I had to change that. I had to put a book out in the world as one data point of the big crowdsource you're all doing in life. My book, Glennon Doyle's book, everybody else's book is one, hey, what if this would help? This might help. And so I had to put it out there where it's not the great American novel or the great American book. It's not going to be the answer to everything. It is another note from my heart that says, hey, this could help. Does this resonate with you? And what I really found out from another writer, they said, once you publish the book, it's none of your business. The life the book takes, once you put it out in the world, the life the book takes is between the universe and the readers. And that has helped me so much because once I publish a book, I feel like it's not my business, that I've done my part and that book will find and go and be cured by and passed on. It will find its way in the world. And so how did I know I was ready? You're not ever ready. So you have to have good partners. Marin Shokir is one of my great partners. She's written the last 2 books with me, dear friend. She's like a like-minded editor. So I give her a really crappy first draft. And then we go back and forth and she makes me so mad because she's like, is it this or is it that? She helps me define my language David White says poetry is language against which you have no defense. Like she helps me get out of the ambiguity which your ego loves, because then you can not be vulnerable. You're like, well, I didn't mean it like that. No, she's like, what is true? And then I tend to not be a perfectionist. I tend to not like rewrites. I'm usually being a mom and working full time and writing a book like, on a plane at midnight. So I'm pretty good with my personality, getting it out there and having her kind of do her work on it. And I'm into good enough. If I waited to, I was able to write the perfect thing that expressed exactly the perfect thing that I think you all need to hear, I would never get a book out. So I have to look at a book to say, this is what I have to say right now. And it will change and it will evolve. So what was the hardest chapter? I would tell you the hardest chapter was a chapter on changing my questions. And I waited to the end to write it because a lot of you know this, but I went through a divorce during COVID that I did not want. And I found myself in a place where I thought integrity was I have to stay in a relationship because I keep my commitments and I'm willing to do the work for both of us. And I came to a place where divorce actually became an act of integrity. I had compromised so much to keep the peace that I had a war going on inside myself. And I asked for what I needed, and the other person wasn't able or willing to step up to that. And I hated that answer. I hated it. So I had just gone through that very fresh experience, and I had just learned some important lessons that I knew were important for me, and I wanted to share them with you. And so that was the hardest one to write. Also, the chapter on enough, because I wrote a lot about the death of my best friend, Kathy. And in that chapter, I had to question like whether I had loved people enough. Like, were they convinced? Did they feel well loved? And sometimes I think people have heard you aren't enough. When that's not what I meant, like what we're creating isn't enough. And so that was a hard one to write to talk about my hope for myself that people are convinced that they're enough, that I've loved them so well, like Kathy loved me, that I always just knew that I was enough. So what a great question. I know I'm supposed to be signing books, but we will get these signed. Love these comments. Hearing you talk about this journey, I will talk more about it. If you buy a book for somebody else, Vanessa, you've covered your quota. I will definitely get you that conversation series, which is awesome. We're also going to be starting up after the book launches a new Life's Messy Live Happy community. It's going to be really fantastic. And yes, I'm an Iowa girl. Diana Joe living in Florida, us Iowa girls. The other thing I would tell you is that if you want to help me promote it, we've got a email that Maria can send you if you want to DM her for you to send out to others to say, hey, let's get on this. I'm going to be doing podcasts. We're going to have so many more conversations about this. Thank you, Gloria Ann. My work is awesome. Women like me, I will listen to it. I haven't heard Adele's new song. I love all of these comments. Okay, so I am writing. I just want to tell you who I'm writing to, so you guys don't have to wait completely for me to do it. But Sherry Roy, I'm writing to her and her family. Jen Lindstrom, Julie Beth Lauren, Lori Clemens, Rob O. Awesome. Congratulations. Rob O is just taking a vow in a beautiful spiritual religious group. I'm so proud of him. Patricia, Trisha, Lana, Vanessa, Anne from NIH. I love you so much. I love all of you guys, but I love, and we have these Nebraska Reds. Hey, Barry, if you're on, I haven't seen it, but Barry is part of my Life's Messy Live Happy group. And Deanne, it's so good to see all these names. Keisha and Crystal and Lori. And if you want to type any more in that came in, Maria, I want to do that. I want to respect people's time. We said a half hour, but I'm going to stay on and sign these. You're welcome to stay on and ask questions if you can. we're all going to read those chapters twice. So yes, Gwen, I figured that. And you know what I've decided? It's like, well, I want my boundaries and my privacy. Um, I'm not going to walk in shame that life's messy. The best we can do is get out there in the mess. That's where life happens. That's where the joy and the pain is. Like, so many of us trying to avoid the mess. We want to pass the test or perfect our external circumstances, or you know pick one right person and then be married forever. Like, we have all of these ideas of how to not ever have to touch the mess. But I'm here to tell you, when I started to embrace the mess, that's where life is. That's where, yeah, you get your heart broke, but you also like wet your pants with laughter. That is like where the scrumptious, delightful, beautiful stuff is in the mess. And if you're living in a way to please others, or you're living in a way to just maximize your own position, where you're going to walk through as a total independent, or you're going to walk through trying to get everybody else, back in. I left Quinn's hide message. There we go. Back in, that you want to do things perfectly. And that's why the subtitle is things don't have to be perfect for you to be content. If that's your focus, you will snap at some point. I just want to promise you, I'm 56. I've snapped 100 times in my life, but you will realize it's not sustainable. And I want to make the mess more normal for all of us. Like, I want us not to get on a chat when we ask how you are. It's like people are like, I'm doing good, because that's a huge, or I'm fine, because that's a huge lie. A better, more specific thing is, I'm so grateful and devastated. Like, let's get okay with like the mess, like multiple things being true at the same time. And, let's get good at heartbreak. Let's get good at transcending permanence, and let's really understand impermanence. Let's get good at welcoming what's new and letting go of what's no longer in our favor. Life isn't where we collect it all and try and hold on to it. Life is more like surfing the waves. So I really think that I think you're going to love this. And vulnerability does build connection. And aren't we all like, I know I'll speak for myself. I'm just tired of having to connect in a surface way. And that this isn't new. For those of you that follow me, I am willing from the stage to be like, let me tell you about myself and where I screwed this up. So I love it. I love that people are listening to my books and reading them. When I write, I really try and not just write stream of consciousness, but boil things down, especially my work with Erin, my first like-minded editor, and Maren, my second. There's a lot to unpack in there. And if you read them at different parts of your career or different times in your life, they will mean different things. I love it when people come up to me and they have like 100 like little tabs that my books just don't go on the shelf. They're like workbooks. They're like, people send me pictures of my books like on their desk or their nightstand. What I promise you my books will do, they won't give you the answers, but they will get you self-reflecting. And here's the truth of all of it. If you want to know my bottom line truth, once you know yourself and once you trust yourself, you will know how to live. I think Guter said that, a poet and philosopher. But once you trust yourself, you'll know how to live. And unfortunately, our ego has us looking externally for clues so that we know how to play the game and we know how to like win the game. And following your breath and your feelings internal and getting to know yourself and processing and noticing and affirming, then you're going to know how to live in every single moment. And you have to learn to go within and trust what things are telling you. And it will be good, I promise. So I'm going to go through, and if more came on, Maria, that I missed. Oh my gosh, Joe, good to see you here. I'm going to get all choked up that I make a difference in people's lives, and that they make you reflect. That's all I'm asking. You will not find a single answer in here. That I will promise you. If you're like, what is life's meaning? But you will find really heartfelt stories about things I've learned. And we talked a little bit about the chosen piece, but my boys asked me why I married their dad when we divorced. And I'm like, if I were honest, because he asked me. And we built a lovely family. But I'm like, I don't think I ever asked me if he would make a good life partner for me. I was just so honored that somebody wanted me. Some of the jobs I've taken were simply because somebody is like, we pick you. And I felt so enamored with that, instead of like, is this the lifestyle I want? Is this what's meaningful work for me? And what I love about the Great Resignation right now is it's the Great Life Review right now, is that I think people are realizing that they have taken on some things, but they never asked themselves. Now, our work is to not make that into selfish, where we are just going to maximize our position in the world, because that doesn't sustain happiness either. We all know when the pie's cut unfair, and our hearts all take a hit in doing that. So I am going to keep signing. I promise I was supposed to sign and talk at the same time. This is a new concept, and we have proven that I can't do that. So that's okay. They'll be in the next book. But I am going to write all of these nameplates out, and I'm not going to keep you on for so long, but I'm going to write them out where I can focus, and we will get them mailed out to you. And I just am so excited. Make sure you're signed up for our newsletter. And I have all these great overlays that I'm probably not using, and Maria did such a good job. So I have to at least show one overlay. So there's this one. Don't show that. We've proven I can't do this very well. So that's a great overlay. Thanks, Maria. You can pre-order just by this Q code. And I have to get my skills back up, all of you, to figure that these things out. But help pre-order the book, spread the word. We have a big launch party for people who bought the books, and you'll get more information on that. But you have to sign up for the newsletter. And if you're not getting the newsletter, that's a bummer, because the way algorithms are working, we're putting much more into LinkedIn Live, and we're putting much more into the newsletter, so that we don't try and just hit you on Instagram and other places. But thank you for all the love and support. You are all just so dear to me. Thank you, Maria, for bailing me out on that one. And oh, meeting at DIA on your way to Costa Rica. I remember that. Oh my gosh. Anyway, I love you guys, and I mean that. And love wins. And we are going to emerge out of this last couple of years, evolved, not traumatized, and ready to create amazing workplace, amazing workplace. We can do that. This is what I did during the pandemic. And I'm so glad that you are ordering it and sharing it. Everybody be well, know that you are loved, and we'll be back with a lot of these. So stay tuned. Perfect. I'm going to end this. There's last chats coming in. And oh, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. Vanessa, so good to see you. LinkedIn user, if somebody's name comes up inside, I always love them. They have these great comments. Yes, you will. Oh, thank you. To read the book, someone to me, because if you don't, others will always minimize your value. You are priceless. Oh, thank you. Kathy Clark, good to see you on here. And more later, I promise I'll be back.